Hi, I'm Peg, the book prize lover. I've changed the name of my YouTube channel where it doesn't, I used to be called the book prize addict, but I wanted to talk about other things, so I've changed it, but I'm still really love the book prizes. In particular, one of my very favorite ones was announced, or the Longlist was announced this week. It's the Republic of Consciousness Prize. It had 5 on it. This you can't tell by this, but I have links to the bottom below this where you can look on there. The Republic of Consciousness Prize gives an award each year to a small press, and they define a small press as having 5 or less full-time employees. So that is pretty small, and it seems that the books usually turn out to be cutting edge as far as innovative. Some people might say experimental, just really down my alley, the things I like. And I have to say, one of the most fun things I have about following, well, all the prizes, but in particular this one, is the Goodreads group, MOOKSE and GRIPES, which I've talked about before, and they talk about all the different prizes. I followed it for years before it was even on Goodreads, and it's just fun. I have to tell you, there's a group that kind of specializes in these innovative type, sometimes translated books in the group, and they started months ago pointing out ones that would be eligible for this prize, trying to guess them and read them, and they even made a list of like 30 books that would be eligible, and they go ahead and read ones that they really think they'll like. And I have to say, there's one in particular, a guy who used to be a judge, or actually several of them used to be judges of this prize, so they're very well versed in this kind of thing. And Paul, I'm talking about you, he tries to figure out all the books that are going to be on the list, and he prides himself because he does get a lot of them, but I think he's even happier when they surprise him with ones he hadn't even heard of, and he gets to find a new book. And I think on this he had mentioned 6 out of the 10, and so he has 4 yet to read. We're hoping he can get them pretty soon and read them, because he also gives great reviews of the books. Okay, so anyway, the Longlist has 10 books this year, and they give each publisher that gets on the Longlist £1,000, which is, I'm sure, a lot to them, even at that. And I'm not sure what the winner is. They're going to be having a short list, which I think is 5 or maybe 6 books in March, and then the winner is in May. So we'll have plenty of time to read them. And I've been able to get most of them either through used books or one way or the other. Some I already had because they were on the Goldsmiths list, which I won't go into now, but it has many of the same type books. So anyway, this year, the one I'm going to read first, I already read first, was by a new press that hasn't been in this before. It's the Scotland Street Press, established in 2014 in Edinburgh, and they state on their purpose that they want to bring forth the distinctive Scottish voice in literature and help form it into its own, you might say, voice. So as I said, I don't think they've been in there before, but they have won several small book prizes. They've been around since 2014. And boy, do they have a corker this time. It's a great book. Okay, the book I read first was called Alindarka's Children by a Belarusian author, written in Russian. And, the name's on here. Now, I'm going to talk about the author a little bit, but it's translated, so don't worry. I'll get to the translators and plenty of information about the translators too. I know that's important, especially in a book like this. Okay, his name is, I can't even read this, Bakarevic. Okay, Bakarevic. He grew up in Belarus, which has been on and off a colony of Russia I think they're even still having problems with Russia. And as many colonized areas are, it's what they call a linguistically torn country. He grew up speaking Russian because that was made the official language, but as a revolt, people did speak the Belarusian language and write in it. And as in many places where there's two languages, the one of the colonizer is always viewed as more important than the one of the being colonized. So this author, when he was growing up, he revolted by speaking and writing in Belarusian. And he even was founded and was the vocalist of the first Belarusian punk band. So he was really into it. Okay. I'm going to tell you about the book has several main themes, but I'm going to talk about the translation first because that's really important in this, and I think maybe it'll even win some of the translation prizes that are coming out because it's so well done. Okay, the book is about it takes off on the Hansel and Gretel story, but I'll get to that in a minute. But it's about children in this supposed land that's under the colonization of another place, where they're put in these training camps to learn to speak only the language of the colonizer. And it's kind of a little bit spectral as far as what goes on. They give them pills that supposedly make them speak clear Russian and do operations on them. So at the first of the novel, they are escaping, these two children are escaping from this camp, which is a fenced around, a real spooky evening there. His escape was well done and drew my interest right away. So anyway, let's get a little bit to the translated part. Okay, so it was written in Russian, and I think it probably had some Belarusian when they talked, because the longer they were away from the camp, the less pure Russian they talked, and the more their talk was in Belarusian or this. And it was translated by two translators. They wanted to translate it into English, but it had like two languages in it. The Russian part was translated by, I have it, Jim Dingley. He translated the Russian part. And then in the, what I assume was the Belarusian dialogue when they were talking, it was translated by Petra Reid, who is a Scottish poet and translator. And it was thought that this is a good way to differentiate in English, in Scots, they call it, the Scottish language, in the way that Russian and Belarusian was related. So therefore, the translators were very important, and you can tell right away. Now, the part that she translated into Scots was a little hard for me to read. It was spelled differently. I mean, you could tell it had an English base, but it's spelled differently, and it did have a glossary, but since I had an electronic book, it was kind of a pain to always be turned to the glossary. And I did notice that helped if I spoke the words phonetically out loud. I could kind of figure out what they were, and as it went on, I got better and better in that. So what I really want them to do is make an Audible book out of this, because some of the books that are in English but hard for me to understand as American speakers, such as Shuggy Ban and Milkman, they had wonderful electronic audiobooks that helped me to listen to those as I read along. So I'm hoping we could get a Audible copy of this. Okay, let's see. So that's the story of the translation. And as I said, the translations are very important. Now, as far as the story goes, I'm not going to tell you too much, but it's wild. It has some Hansel and Gretel, but it also has some more literary type events added on, and some of it was a little hard to take. They kept going back to scenes in the training camp where they supposedly learned to speak the pure language of their country, the colonizing country, and it had some a little bit traumatic abuse scenes in it, but it fit in with the rest. But anyway, at the first, the kids escape from there, and then they're in the forest looking around, and I had to review Hansel and Gretel to remember what happened. And there was a father and a stepmother figure who, the stepmother, I think, didn't like him too much, and actually somehow lost him in the forest. Now, there's where Hansel and Gretel takes place. I reread it. It's been years, and if you remember right, Hansel and Gretel are found go to a witch's house. We called it a witch. They call her Grandma here, and she decides she's so hungry she wants to eat them, so she fattens them up for a while. And they're in some sort of cage, and she can't see very well, and she asks them to stick out their finger to see if they're getting fat enough for her to eat. And in Hansel and Gretel itself, they find some bone or something and stick the bone out for her to feel. So she keeps thinking they're not fat enough yet. And this part, the matching part to here, when they go to this cottage, is excellently done. I could just see that part. You might even say there's a little bit of horror in this book. But okay, so it goes on and on. They have many adventures, plus the people from the camp, the training camp, are hunting for them, and they have adventures being found by them and running away. And it was just compulsive reading to me, I have to say. I'm putting this very high on my list. This is my first one to read of the 10, but if it goes like this, I could even see this being a winner. So it's definitely on my list for the short list coming up. So I am hoping some of you all will read it, and I would love to hear some other people talk about it. Okay, thanks. Bye.